All right, how's everyone doing? Been a great couple of days. Is everyone still standing? Cool, man. A lot of learning, eh? Well, we're just waiting for Dan, who's part of our panel. He's coming through any moment now. And it's great to be here with you all at the NFT.NYC 2022, talking about revolutionizing the future of work with NFTs. And I'm going to add the word metaverse in there because I think they are intermittently linked. And here's Dan.
Hello.
Cool. So I'm Mann. I'm CEO and co-founder of Africa's first metaverse called Africa Rare. Also the co-CEO of Singularity U South Africa. And over the last 7 years, we've been educating, inspiring leaders to become future fit. And part of that is, that new world is in NFTs in the metaverse. NFTs are going to literally change all of our skill sets, what we can do in this world. And just these people sitting on this panel, if you think about it, all of us had to learn new skills in order to be where we are today and creating these new types of products. So it's very exciting. So I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves, starting with Nate. You can kick it off. Just tell us what you're up to and what you do. Nate is the Director of Operations from Curious Addies.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm the Director of Operations for Curious Addies. We are kind of the leading educational NFT project we launched late last year. And now we're working on building tools for onboarding more people into Web3, kind of making Web3 more accessible in general. And yeah, because we think this is the way forward.
This is next up is Phillip Shoemaker, Executive Director of identity.com.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Phillip Shoemaker, Executive Director of identity.com. But basically, identity.com is focusing on creating tools and protocols that help bring off-chain credentials and making them available on-chain. That just basically means identify yourself, keep your credentials securely and signed, but made available on-chain so you can access great services like DeFi protocols and things like that.
Such an important part of the future of work as well, as we move into this more digital world and become more pseudonymous. Yeah. Next up, we have Pooja Shah, who's a founder and CEO of Tefer Labs. Pooja, what you up to?
Yes, so I'm the founder and CEO of Tepra Labs. Our mission is to build infrastructure for large-scale human coordination, and our first project is a decentralized talent marketplace and protocol called Radius. Along with a lot of the folks here, believe that NFTs and some of the primitives that Web3 enables can really fill out a history of what people are interested in, what skills they have, and using that information to kind of connect them to really compelling opportunities and help them for their careers.
Awesome, thanks. And lastly, we have Dan Westgarth, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Deal.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name's Dan. I'm the COO at Deal. Deal's an international payroll company. We help businesses hire anyone, anywhere. We're pretty big. We have about 1,100 employees in 75 different countries, and the company's worth north of $10 billion.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, huh? Can we come work for you? All right, so that's there. You have our illustrious panel of amazing people, and this panel has an incredible history if you actually go read their bios. Even Phillip, he helped build the App Store, which is pretty amazing. But let's get into the panel and some of these questions. Starting with you, Pooja. How do you think NFTs will change the way we work? In Web3, crypto, the metaverse, how's it going to change how we work?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question, and obviously I'm sure everyone has a really interesting perspective on this. I think NFTs, as just a primitive, are really a way to describe so many bits of information about really anything. It's fundamentally, NFTs are a unit that represent ownership, and ownership can represent ownership of assets. It can also represent life history and experiences, all sorts of things. So I think one of the things that, as we go forward in the future and think about how the way that people will work will change, A lot of folks recently have talked about things like soul-bound tokens and on-chain identity, or on-chain reputation, or off-chain reputation, but Web3-enabled reputation, generally speaking. And I think it's really NFTs and NFT-related tokens and derivatives of that will be a really critical way of representing what people know, what people want to work on, the experiences that they've had in the past, and ultimately really filling out this description of who a person is and where they want to go as they kind of move through the real world and digital world, whether that's like in the metaverse or projects that they're working on, et cetera. And sort of this, I think what we'll really start to see in the future is these really rich descriptions of who people are, who a person is, by the collection of NFTs that they own, which will not just be assets that they own, but the life experiences that they've had. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to, you know, just like the clothes we're wearing says who we are, the NFTs are also going to be what our main identifiers are. Does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think NFTs are already starting to change the way people work, right? I think in the future, we're going to see more services like identity.com or token proof that are providing access to IRL type of events using NFTs. And some of those could be as a gateway or an entryway into your office building, right? So things like that will be able to you'll be able to use an NFT to secure on a VPN, to access computer networks that you need for your company, et cetera. I mean, there's so many variations on NFTs and ways that we'll be able to leverage this. You know, I'm a big fan of pseudonymity. I know we'll talk about that in a bit, but that's another aspect of this that I think is going to change everything.
I can give a slightly different angle. So I mentioned we're a payroll company. We help companies hire people in 100 different countries. If we look at the United States, the hiring market is pretty straightforward. When you want to hire someone, the checks that you have to do in order to onboard that person are relatively simple. If you go to a market like Egypt or Poland or Brazil, it becomes incredibly complex. In order to hire someone, they might have to undertake a medical examination, or they might have to prove that they have completed mandatory military service. So if these documents can be authenticated and tokenized, that could make onboarding really, really quick and easy for them. If you imagine that on a global level, it makes international hiring much, much simpler.
I think that's a great point. I mean, they say, you know, NFTs in the metaverse are the greatest equalizer because it doesn't matter where you're from, your geography, your class, you know, what race or background you have. It's can you get the job done, and you can prove that very easily with an NFT. You know, let's talk to Nate a little bit here, who's from Curious Daddies. Nate, what are you curious about? Or, you know, Curious Daddies, you can ask any question about NFTs or Web3 and get an answer. So I'm curious to know what's happening in the NFT world. What have you seen that is exciting in terms of the future of work, new types of jobs or new types of business models that you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So something that we've personally seen at Curious Addies is a really strong interest to get into the future and to kind of learn more about the space. And our project is fundamentally an educational project, so our goal is to onboard more people into the space. So we get a lot of the beginners and people kind of asking these similar questions like, what can I do? Like, what kind of work is there? We see a lot of engineers and artists coming through, which obviously are very, very key roles in an NFT project or anything else. Yeah, so I think that we're going to see a lot more of these kind of engineer-type roles. I think that, as the other panelists have pointed out, I think NFTs are going to be a really key part in identity and pseudo-anonymity. And yeah, I can also speak, as Dan said, to hiring internationally. I'm an international employee as well, and definitely a kind of tokenized ability to work credential or medical checker, for example. It would make things a lot faster, and I hope to see stuff like that going forward for sure.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Right. My company, almost half our employees are international, and they're not technically employees, right? Because it's a very difficult thing to do. That's an amazing problem to solve.
Pooja, do you want to add to that at all? Anything exciting you're seeing? What does Tefer Labs do?
So Tefer Labs is really the first project is Radius. We've been around for a couple of months, and right now we are actually running into, it's less about international hiring for us at the moment, but we've been working with a lot of service DAOs that are trying to bring people, for example, like Developer DAO and Indie DAO and Pub DAO and these groups, like these communities of people that are coming together because they have a certain skill set and are interested in getting engaged in like Web3 ecosystems, getting their start in Web3 through that particular community. And one of the things that's been really interesting is, you kind of have this, being a part of this community is a signal in and of itself. But obviously, an 8,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 person community is not homogenous, and people, have different skill sets, and some people are TypeScript developers, and some people are Rust developers, and some people are just at the beginning of the journey, and some people have been doing it for years, and so being able to kind of get this sort of richer information about where someone is in their journey with respect to like the various nuances of when it comes to actually being able to connect people to appropriate opportunities, that level of nuance is super important. And so that's something that we've really been thinking about is how do we get this richness of skill data and things like that to be, and representing it in a way that's also privacy friendly, but ultimately enables people to feel really empowered as they're going after like their next opportunity. So yeah, less on the international hiring front, but hiring related.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's a great study that was done by Deloitte in 2019 where they said, you used to have a career between 30 to 50 years, and that would be, you'd go to university and you'd get your degree, and that would sort of be your path in life. And now they said every 3 to 5 years you need to upskill yourself and learn new skills in order to be relevant in your current job or become, get into a new job. And IBM came out with their skills gap study in 2019 saying that, every 30 days now you need to be upskilling yourself and learning new skills. And if you look at, what's happening in the future of work, in metaverses like the Sandbox, people are becoming, architects and artists creating your NFTs for you, or, building out your different projects. The Bored Apes are creating the other side, which is going to, create a huge amount of new types of jobs in those worlds. Dan, let's just ask you, what do you think about how the finance industry is going to play a role in, in this new type of ecosystem?
It's interesting. We have a lot of DAOs that come to us, and they run payroll both for contractors and employees. So in case of contractors, it's pretty easy. Contractor has to raise an invoice, and you can pay that contractor using fiat or using crypto. But if you want to offer that person an employment contract, then they have to be employed by a legal entity in said country, and you have to withhold taxes from them. You have to pay taxes on behalf of the employer organization. We've developed a solution where we can accept money from DAOs in crypto, in USDC. So they can pay us without having a bank account, which is really amazing because anyone that's running a DAO knows how hard it is to get a bank account. So being able to fund your payroll using USDC is a game changer. And we've taken that one.
That is a game changer. Huh? Who's going to do that? Can you use Deal to do that?
Yeah. You use Deal. Yeah. So you can fund your payroll using USDC. And then we can actually pay your contractors and employees using crypto. So the traditional elements of the payroll still happen. Taxes are withheld, remitted, social security registrations, and all of that take place. But the actual payment of salary, the net salary, can be paid in crypto. So it can be paid in USDC, Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, etc., which is really cool. That's the first point I've got. The second point is, I think that, if I think of running a business, there are typical functions that you need. You need a HR function, you need a finance function, eventually you need procurement, business control, all of this kind of stuff. I think in the example of a DAO, you need far less internal corporate functions. So you can run an organization which is significantly leaner than a traditional corporation, which is really cool. Really cool.
Awesome. Let's move the conversation over to identity, and let's talk about pseudonymy. And Phillip, I'm looking at you here.
All right.
How's it going to change the way we work by being pseudonymous, or having your identity as an NFT?
Yeah, first of all, I want to jump back to your statement about 30 days. You have to refresh your skills every 30 days. You know, I see a few OG crypto folks. I think we might argue that it's every day, right?
Every day, yeah. In crypto, it's every day.
Crypto is just so much different than the real world, right? It's so fast-paced, so things change all the time. So I appreciate that, right? I think we should always be learning, right? That's why many of us are in this space, is because we saw the wave coming, and we wanted to understand it, so we jumped. So for me, one of the cool things about the future of work, I believe it should be pseudonymity, right? We should be in a pseudonymous world when it comes to it. Like when I hire engineers, do I really care what gender or what color or what religion or what their names are? Because, you know, a name means a lot, right? You can read a name and you can kind of guess a lot of characteristics about a person. That's unfortunate. I want to work in a world where it doesn't matter. It just matters what your work product is. And so for me, partnering with companies that hopefully will be able to hire people in a pseudonymous way, sure, there's background checks, somebody knows who they are, but I don't necessarily care. Right? For me, I just want to pay somebody to deliver great products.
Can I just ask you something there? What happens if the person you don't know is a criminal or works for a competitor organization?
Well, we have to do background checks, right? We have to do that. Check the OFAC list, whatever we ultimately need to do. There have to be checks and balances. That's what I like about pseudonymity versus anonymity, right? Pseudonymity means there's some skin in the game, right? They've been KYC'd at some maybe root level at an HR company, something like that. But when they come to me, doesn't really matter. Now, somebody pointed out to me earlier today, well, they might have multiple jobs. And I really thought about that, and I wondered, does it really matter, right? The gig economy is here. People are delivering. Hey, look, if I hire someone, they're working multiple jobs, and they're not delivering what I need, I'm sorry, I'll fire them, right? We'll move on. We'll find somebody who can do the work. And so for me, that's one of the things I like about pseudonymity. Look, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Did people really need to know who the 4 founders were? I argue no. Why did it really matter, right? Who the founders were. They weren't trying to get more money out of you. They just sold some art that had some utility and still has utility, and yet they had to get doxxed for some reason. And I think those kind of, and now they have to travel with a security detail, much like Anatoly and Rajdu from Solana, because they know they're high net worth individuals. So now suddenly you have to pay out of your pocket to protect yourself and have a security at your house. It's just anonymity, our pseudonymity solves so many of these problems, and that's kind of place I want to live.
So interesting. Pooja, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting when you think about things like KYC and contractual relationships and things. I think especially, I totally agree, people having multiple jobs is just the way of the future. That's like, it's already happening. I mean, basically no DAO contributor just has one job, that's just kind of how it goes. But being able to, if someone does work for a competitor and it's not an open source project and, there's like some concern there. So I think there is something really interesting about how our space will sort of evolve to, because obviously those are real concerns. But I do think, especially something like KYC is very easy to envision ways of having people conduct background checks and then issuing a credential, which is, from a trusted issuer, to say that they're fine. They're not on some OFAC list or, some terrorist somewhere. So, yeah, and there are ways to kind of still meet the legal requirements that we have in order to address some of these potential disaster scenarios that don't require people to be fully known, and yeah.
And I know a great company that does that, right? It's identity.com.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so I love that. The thing about pseudonymity also, I just want to add, is it doesn't just necessarily mean you're working under a pseudonym. There can be reputational signals that say, yes, they have these higher degrees from these places. They have a degree in virology or something like that. If you're listening to them drone on about COVID, you want to know if they have some skin in that game, right? You want to know, is this some advice I should trust?
So I think that's the beautiful thing about NFTs, because it enables this new type of capability and being able to check reputation. And let's go back to that idea that you spoke about, Vitalik soulbound tokens. How does that? Do you want to just explain? I don't know if the audience knows about Vitalik's new concept around Vitalik Buterin's new concept around soulbound tokens. Do you want to explain it a little bit and just tell us how it is going to work?
Yeah, sure. So soulbound tokens are the idea of a token that is bound to a particular wallet and can't be transferred. And I know personally at our company, we've kind of implemented this on our Q&A platform, Curious.XYZ, which is a place where anyone can ask questions and get expert answers, as a way to kind of validate the credentials of an expert and have their reputation available as an NFT, a soulbound NFT, so it can't be transferred. And it allows anyone to go and look and say, is this person trustworthy? Yeah, they are.
I have a question, Nate. How is it bound?
So it's bound to wallet address. So
Okay.
it can't be transferred out of someone's wallet.
Okay. But I could have multiple wallet addresses, right? So I could have multiple soulbound tokens.
Yes, that is a possibility.
It's, I was just thinking as we were having the previous conversation, like how many KYC checks do we do a year? I think I do over 150 different KYC checks a year. KYC check is costing probably north of $1. The KYC companies have a pretty strong incentive to block this technology, right? Because they're making so much money.
Guys, we're going to have to cut it short. I think we've run out of time. We have the lovely Tori on the stage. So I want to just give a big round of applause for our panel. And to all of you guys, thanks for being here and being open to learning and make a positive change in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.